Hey everybody!
All right, here we go.
Riot Mort here, and Into the Arcane has been out for 3 weeks. The Americans had their Thanksgiving holiday, and it is time for our first patch
All
of
right.
Into the Arcane, patch 14.24. It's also the last patch of the year.
Last patch.
Pretty cool. So yeah, and the other crazy thing about this patch is there's a lot coming. It's a pretty big patch because the Arcane show is over, so we're adding things like the 6 costs, and this is the patch that the Macau Open will be played on. So this patch happens on Wednesday, and the Macau Open is on Friday, which should be pretty interesting, should be a lot of fun, healthy competition. But like I said, there's a lot of changes here, so let's talk about them and dive right in.
Let's do it.
The first thing is, big change to the Anomaly system. We launched, and what we found is that if players were able to store up 60 gold, they could force certain anomalies. This really kind of went against the spirit of what we were trying to go for. So we made a pretty light change to the system, which is just
light.
It's now possible to see repeats. So if you want to dig deep for like 30 gold, 40 gold, you still can, but just be aware you aren't guaranteed to see the thing. So generally in this regard, you probably want to pick 3 or 4 anomalies that you could be comfortable taking and then go deep. But this really goes more to the spirit of what anomalies are supposed to be. Pretty light change. You're probably not going to see any repeats in your first few rerolls, but the deeper you go, the more likely you are to see those repeats, so just be careful.
We watched a scrim where one player in like 6 rolls rolled 3 options. Like he rolled like Scuttle Familiar, then Slime Time, and then like the Mini-Me's, which is like the small things, and then rolled into like Scuttle Puddle, and then rolled into Slime Time, and then rolled into Mini-Me's again. It was crazy. It was like, it's this gold rolled like 3 options. Okay, it wasn't 6, it was probably like 8 gold, but it felt like it was happened way too often. So that is one thing about it that I think people are gonna hate. I feel like people are gonna low roll their anomalies really often and remember that. And I feel like most people are gonna remember the bad things, and they're not gonna like really acknowledge it. But the general takeaway is that you have to be more open to anomalies. Someone did a tweet. It was Cofflow, I believe. He did like a simulation of how much gold you have to run on average. In the past, this is the old system. It was about 29 gold for 1 anomaly roll. Or sorry, if you're rolling for 1 anomaly, like Ultimate Hero, 4-starring your Violet, and it was 19 for 2 anomalies, 14 for 3. Now in the new system, if you're rolling for 1 specific anomaly, on average, it's going to cost you 59 gold. That's the average amount of gold. So you have to roll way wider. And that's what they're talking about. That's what they want. It kills pre-game creativity because pre-game, you can't force your Hungry Crab with Urgot as easily. You can't force your 4-star 1 cost. But in-game creativity theoretically improves. We'll see. Light change.
Loot orbs containing multiple units or anvils can now be partially opened if you have the space for some, but not all the units inside. This is a really painful thing sometimes, and it was causing some bugs. But like, let's say the thing had 4 champions inside and you only had 3 bench slots. You couldn't open it. And it was like, clear your bench. And you're like, I can't. I need to save this stuff. Now you can partially open it, get the results, and then, sell those 3 things and open the last one. So
man, I'm getting more dogged again.
Prismatic orbs. We made one small change to prismatic orbs. There was one of the drops that would give 2 champ duplicators and 30 gold. That one's gone. You can't drop that one anymore. In its place, you can get a 6-cost champion, an artifact anvil, and an item remover. So this is a pretty fun one to drop because you get like an early Warwick or an early Victor plus an artifact anvil. So it can be pretty fun, and being able to anomaly those are pretty interesting.
Wait. So you can get this. Oh, you can get this at like stage 3. Oh, wait. This is also part of Prismatic Prelude.
And then the last one is just a really nice quality of life.
Oh, sorry, no. Sorry, pipeline. Sorry, pipeline, not prelude, but yeah.
We've been testing it on PBE. It feels a lot better. But component combining through the hover on the new UI has been sped up to the point where it's actually pretty nice to use now.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, all right.
Good stuff.
And then the big one here, 6-cost champions have appeared. So the way 6 costs work, starting at the anomaly, 6-cost champions have a chance to appear in your shop. That is independent of level. It has nothing to do with your level. That chance goes up each round. So the longer the game goes, the higher that chance it goes. And that is increased when you hit level 10. If you hit level 10, you are more likely to see them. Stage 7 also, they show up a lot more in stage 7. But there you go. These are very rare. You may not see one every game. But, usually there's probably at least one person in the lobby who has one.
Usually.
And then to give you an idea about what these are, A 1-star 6 cost is about on par with a 2-star 4 cost, give or take. They have a lot more utility though, so they end up usually doing less damage than a 2-star 4 cost, but they have a lot of utility. So
That's important to know.
Let's go over these real quick. First off is going to be the one that's probably the most popular here, which is Victor. Victor has Machine Herald, which converts
Insane
all
unit.
mana, attack speed, and attack damage into AP. So you can put a Deathblade on him. But what that means is Shojin isn't good on him because he can't generate mana. Like, you cannot accelerate his cast. His cast is locked in, and it's going to happen around 9 seconds into combat, and again around 28 seconds into combat.
You can with an anomaly, though.
You can't make him cast quicker. It's impossible. You can just give him lots and lots of power, though. His passive is his auto attacks are a Death Ray that shreds, deals a little bit of true damage, but the shred and the sunder is the big value here. So, like, if you didn't build Last Whisper or Ionic Spark, Victor will provide that. And then his active is the coolest spell in the game. It's a big map-wide AoE stun that lifts up all enemies for 2 seconds and then slams them down, dealing some of their health as damage. Really good utility. Like I said, I put Victor in every comp I can find him in. The champ's really, really good. So, yeah.
Yeah, I predict Victor is going to be the 6 cost that gets nerfed in the next patch. I think he's the most splashable. There's no comp that doesn't want him. He's utility. He sunders and shreds, which is exactly what Mort talks about. And he's a perfect item dump, right? Like, let's say you open up a Deathblade and you're playing AP comp and you don't really want, like, 2 swords. Like, guess who can use it? Victor can use it. Just converts all that into AP. So, like, he like, what can't this guy do? And also, he actually can deal a big amount of damage as well. So on our PvE scrims, this guy is like defining a lot of late game comps. If you're having trouble winning out with your reroll comp, if you're having trouble like capping out with like, you know, your Kog'Maw top 4 stuff, for example, like in the past, you just add Victor and that's how you win.
Then there's Warwick. Warwick's passive is he will devour enemies that drop below 12% health, which heals him for 400 health and granting him 50 mana. And he can do this with any range. So, for example, like let's say your Maddie snipes their backline down to below 12%. He'll dash away and eat them, which is really nice. His mana bar is 100, so if he gets 2 of those, he's right back to full mana, which is nice. And then his active is he becomes Blood Frenzied. Blood Frenzy is a unique state for him where he's basically moving faster, has Omnivamp, attack speed, and is constantly just going rah, 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 rah. Pretty cool. The interesting thing about Warwick is he is a experiment. So experiment now has another thing to play. His experiment bonus here is on kill, stun enemies adjacent to dead target for 1 second. I'm not a big fan of his experiment bonus per se, but I like giving him other experiment bonuses like Mundo's. So that works out pretty well. The other thing is to get your expectations in mind. Warwick is not going to top your meters a lot, but the amount of healing he can do between the Omnivamp and the Blood Hunter can be a lot. So if you give him some pretty, like Titans is really good on him. You can have him actually be pretty tanky and pretty durable, which is pretty nice. So he's probably the hardest of the 6 costs to use, though. My shot call here is that he will be the least popular, and players will be asking for him to be buffed. But we'll see.
Yep, fully agreed. I played a 7 experiment Warwick, and it got clobbered. In fact, there's actually a famous clip of Solus playing Camille 3. Let's see, TFT clips, Camille Warwick. You guys need to see this if you haven't seen it yet. This is Solus playing Camille 3.
Warwick 2? No.
He's like, oh my god, my opponent hit a Warwick 2. You guys need to see this. Warwick 2 is 7 experiments.
Machine Herald? No.
And has Victor. Warwick 2, but he's playing Camille 3. Okay, 1 shot. And then he even has Edge of Night to drop the aggro. The Warwick. And then Camille just kicks it anyways. Yeah.
Yo, guys, we do
Is Camo still good?
not show this clip or this VOD to rioters. Camille sucks. Camille sucks.
Yeah, Warwick. Yeah, Camille sucks Warwick.
And then there's Mel. Mel is the Banished Mage. And the way Mel works is Mel has a 40 mana cost. Her spell, she'll dash to a nearby hex, gain a shield on herself and 2 nearby allies. And then 50% of the damage blocked by those shields is stored. So let's say she casts those shields, and everyone takes the damage, that's 900 stored, or excuse me, 450 because 50% of that. And then she also shoots a bunch of shots. Every third cast, she does a bunch of damage plus the stored damage. So if her shields are effective, she does more damage. She sort of converts that back, which is pretty cool, into a big AoE cast. So she's definitely a blue buff plus Nashers plus AP item that can be really fun. Now, the thing about her passive here is if she has cast 12 times since you got her, so you can't just buy her and throw her in and get this, but if you got her to cast 12 times, at that point, she'll protect you. And so if you ever drop below 1 player health, she saves you, sort of a last stand. When she does that, she also gains 10% damage amp, which makes her even stronger. So she's pretty cool. Does require items to do well, but it doesn't quite have as much utility as, say, Victor, but generally can do a little bit more damage and pretty fun. And like I said, having that last stand to protect you can be pretty nice. So
Mel's pretty solid, I think, and she's really splashable as well. Even in the AD comps, you can just give her anything, like leftover stuff, like a shiv or whatever you have, and she's actually done pretty well. Most comps are just playing her for the extra life and it swings placements. So overall, I think Mel actually feels right for 6-cost balance. I feel like Victor is over the line. I think Warwick right now is under the line, although people in chat are speculating for playing the wrong Warwick builds. It could be entirely true. But right now, I feel like Warwick is under, Victor is over. And I think Mel is like, right, like kind of like close to where it should be. She might be a little bit over the line because of how much damage she does relative and her utility, but I think she doesn't feel as crazy as Victor. It could be just the fact that I feel Victor is like way over the line, so maybe she actually is as well, but I can't tell.
There you go. There's our 6 costs. All right, encounters. There are also 4 new encounters this patch. Victor's Vision is probably the craziest. It makes 6 costs appear a little earlier, starting on stage 4-1.
Oh, Lord.
And then after the anomaly, they're 3 times as likely to appear in your shop.
Oh, man.
So if you see the Victor Vision encounter, you're going to see a lot more 6 costs than normal. Mel's Aid. This is basically the Divine Blessing, the Stimmy, if you will. You get powerful loot when you're at 40 health. This one's back. Warwick's Hunger. We've done variations of this one before as well. But basically, it's like everyone gets Spoils of War. So when you kill an enemy champion, Warwick will occasionally devour the body and leave loot behind. So you kind of get that bonus gold for kills. Really good for win streak stuff. And then back by popular demand, Jace's Artifacts. Everyone starts with an Artifact Anvil.
People love this.
We know players have been having fun with the artifacts. There's now an encounter where you start with an Artifact Anvil.
This might be like the biggest key to help make hero augments. Right now, a lot of hero augments feel kind of bad. And I think that certain artifacts are going to like make things like Mad Chemist Singed feel really good. I played one like where like I had Stab with Combat Medic. It didn't feel bad at all. Blade Dance Irelia, right? Like, so just keep this in mind that this artifact start is really good in general with hero augments and rerolling. So we'll see. Also, it might be like Camille's. It might be like 8 people pop Sylvanmere Dawn and 1 person and like 2 people commit Camille. Just be ready for that mentally. Just letting you guys know. But it's a really fun portal because there's a lot of good 4 cost and 5 cost with it. Like RFC, you can go for Mordekaiser, right? Or you can go for like Trenchcoat and Besso. There's a lot of really good combos. But just keep in mind that it's probably going to be a lot dominated by reroll.
Some other minor adjustments here. Scuttle Crabs are now painted to look like Scuttlebutt. Jinx no longer dances for the Crab Rave encounter. Sag. Powder's Wind-Up Monkey is disabled in Hyper Roll. Didn't really need you taking 10 damage in Hyper Roll. Yes, that has happened on live. It's I'm sorry.
Oh.
And it no longer deals double damage in Double Up. So, yeah.
10 damage in Hyper Roll.
If you're curious about what the drop rates of encounters now, I'll leave this up on the screen for a second. I'm not going to read these all off. But basically, stuff like Vander went down a little bit.
Okay.
A couple of the Heimerdinger ones went down. I think even some of the Jinx ones went down a little bit. But basically, to make sure that we had room. Oh, Powder went down a pretty chunk. To make sure we had room for Jace and Victor and Mel and Warwick. But these are the percentages for you. There you go.
Okay.
All right. Traits.
No comment on that.
On the trait side, Academy. Academy took people a little while to learn. It's pretty hard to play. It's really good in the early game where you get a bonus item, so we're not buffing 3 or 4 Academy, but 5 and 6 Academy just needed a small nudge to make sure they're worth it. So they're going to get a bump up here, getting an extra 1% damage amp and health if you use those sponsored items.
Okay, real quick. People are commenting about the odds. I gotta let you know. I know this is what Riot says publicly. It's just not how I feel. I've played so many Trainer Golems games that it makes me think like, okay, like you guys saw, right? I was streaming the other day. I hit 3 Trainer Golems. I know that's how variance works, and I know that human brain tricks you all the time. But I hit 3 Trainer Golems games in like 8 to 9 games. It was crazy. I just can't believe that these are the right. So that's why I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I know, I understand that's what you think and what they probably coded in. That's just not how it feels like to me. So I'm just like, whatever. I'm just gonna look at these odds. Sure.
So Academy ends up getting to be a bit stronger here. Ambusher. Everyone loves a good Camille comp. So Ambusher is actually getting burfed, if you will. It's getting nerfed at 4 and 5 to do less critical strike damage. 10% less critical strike damage at 5, 5% less at 4. So small nerf to Ambusher. We don't want to nerf the trait too much. But we're actually buffing it a little bit at 2, 3, and 4 for the critical strike chance.
Okay.
Just to make sure that it's a little more consistent and you don't like lose a fight to a little RNG. But it's only 5% critical strike chance. Not a big deal. Overall, if you're looking at like Camille comps, the Ambusher trait as a whole probably feels nerfed here because 5 is losing that 10% critical strike damage.
Yeah.
Artillerist. 4 and 6 aren't really as popular. 6 in particular, considering it needs 2 emblems. So they're going to get a small nudge here of 5% more AD and 10% more AD, respectively. So definitely should be a bit better combined with some of the other buffs the champs are getting. Automata. This is going to be a pretty big buff here. It's going to look a lot bigger than it is on paper. The bigger buff here that you should actually be scared about is the armor and MR. The armor and MR is a pretty big chunk here, right? Going from 20 to 25, not a big deal. 50 to 70, that's pretty nice. An extra 20 armor and MR.
50.
And then if you have 6, like 150 armor and MR is like 6 Sentinel levels of tankiness. So that's really good. The base damage of the proc, though, this is the number that I think people are looking at, and it's like, those are big numbers, 800 to 1200.
Yes.
They don't actually proc that much, and this doesn't buff the 25% damage share part of it, so I'm less worried about that side of the buff and more the armor and MR. That being said, we have seen on PvE that this should hopefully make 6 Automata playable, so hopefully that makes it a trait that you're worthy of actually considering, so sweet.
Okay, so the reason why is because I'm not sure if we're itemizing correctly. The base damage procs every 20 instances of damage, and I've seen Rageblade Shiv Kog'Maw 2, Fast 9, extremely comfortable. You guys watched the scrims, right? You guys watched the scrims, right? There was players who were legitimately stable in stage 5 on Kog'Maw 1. On Kog'Maw 1, because they had like Shiv, Gambler's Blade, Rageblade, they went pure attack damage and they proc 6 Automata, and he was literally dealing 8k, 9k damage. So like it's I know he's saying that it's not procking that much, but that's because I think we were building like Archangel's Gunblade, Rageblade, like the old Kog'Maw build. I'm just telling you, if you go, I played like Rageblade Gambler's red buff, and that Kog'Maw will almost let me like straight up Fast 9 just by himself. So you do need 1 Automata emblem, but this is a really, really high buff. And that's why a lot of people think that Automata is going to be S tier of a comp and really broken. I do think that it's falling off a little bit of hype after a couple days of PB play, because I think more people are discovering more lines, but it does feel really, really good so far. So at worst, it's probably like high A tier.
Conqueror, small nudge to 2 Conqueror here. Nothing crazy. 2 Conqueror, kind of a fake trait. You really use it to get like 2 gold in the early game and then maybe move out of it unless you're going 4 Conqueror. So it's going to get a small nudge here. Help you get that 2 gold quicker.
It's nice.
Sorcerer, 6 and 8. Probably one of the less good traits right now on live. It's going to get 10 more AP at each. My honest read is this doesn't really solve all of Sorcerer's problems.
Yes.
But who knows, if you have a really good Sorcerer line, maybe this at least makes them a little more playable.
The problem with sorcerers isn't the damage, it's the front line. You have no front line, and you have to reliably choose between a severe drop-off in damage or a severe drop-off in front line. And Swain isn't good enough to tank by himself unless you get Swain 3. Vlad is not good enough to tank. You need to get Black Rose, but how are you supposed to get that while getting everything online? And you need to hit LeBlanc. It's just too hard.
Black Rose. Black Rose definitely the most popular trait by far here. So definitely getting some changes here. If you get 4 Black Rose early in stage 2 or 3, it will have less health.
Okay.
From there, though, 4 Black Rose isn't really a problem. It's fine. We're kind of happy with that. 5-piece, though, this is where it gets a little nutty. A 5-piece Scion now heals for his missing HP rather than always setting his HP to max. The big thing this does, by the way, is this means anti-heal affects him. You can actually put anti-heal on him to have Scion heal for less. So this should be a nerf to how much that Scion can heal for. And then in addition, we've nerfed his HP at pretty much every level. So 5-piece is going to go down quite a bit. Like I said, stage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5 Black Rose will not be as strong as it is on live. It's still pretty handy. It's still pretty flexible. I don't think this makes 5 Black Rose out of the meta. If you're somebody who's like tired of seeing 3 Scions, maybe you'll see 2 now. It's still a good trait, but it will be less good than it is. And then 7-piece actually is a little underperforming, hilariously enough. So 7-piece is going to get a little bit more of its health on revive, allowing it more time and just be a little tanky. That's about it. So 7 Black Rose gets to be better.
So I actually agree that 7 Black Rose was not that good. I've seen it lose many times. Again, Mort's underselling it. At high elo lobbies, at least, there's like 5 to 6 Black Rose players pretty commonly, and so now you'll probably see like 3. But 5 Black Rose still caps really high, mainly because it's such good frontline, and also it's the best way to play 6 cost. Right now on PBE, 5 Black Rose Victor is capping every AP board. You just play, it doesn't matter what like combination, maybe you play Soko more, which is really popular, or if you play Malzahar Heimer, or maybe LeBlanc plus whatever. But right now you cap that plus Victor plus Mel and you win the game. So that's usually what I anticipate Black Rose to do next patch. I think it's just going to evolve a little bit. But it's good that they nerfed it, so it's not as impressive as it used to be, I hope.
Chem Baron. Chem Baron is in a really good state in the sense that it's like powerful, and if you can hit 500 or more, it ends up doing well.
Wait, they're buffing?
It's just a little too hard to play without a high roll of like a target dummy or golem with an emblem or an emblem start or anything like that. So we want to make sure just like having the 3-piece or the 4-piece makes it a little bit more tempting to play. So 3, 4, and 5 are going to get +5 on their lost streak for their shimmer. Don't think that changes too much. And then to stay in Chem Baron, they're going to get more health per armory passed. So if you get like a 400 or 500 cash out and then stay in like 6 Chem Baron, that's still an extra 640 health for your team. It's pretty nice.
Wow.
One small nerf here, Perfected Shimmer Bloom. I'm sure you've seen some of the videos where they get like lots of procs and have instantly 1,000 AP. Little more than we intended. So it now has a cooldown of 1 second so that you can't just make it go insane. But still should be very, very powerful. And then a tiny text change is the recommended users of the illegal items are now at the bottom instead of at the top of the text. So small.
Okay, I don't think Chem Baron need to give up. I think it's really good. Okay, you know why? It's because Chem Baron is really hard to play for lower elo players. I made a Chem Baron guide on my YouTube channel, I think two days ago, and the #1 comment was, "This is bait. You never played Chem Baron. You can't ever get away with it at low elo." Not only because players are bad at executing Chem Baron, but because against low elo players, you accidentally win all the time because players are playing griefed boards forever. So this is a buff, I think, for lower elo. At higher elo, Chem Baron's super, super good. I think most players report like that they have like an 80%, like they're probably exaggerating, but they say like somewhere between 60-80% win rate with Chem Baron. Like Keegan was telling me that, Soju's telling me that, like all those people who's playing Chem Baron, they average like a 1.x. So it might be one of those things where now at high elo it's extremely good, like maybe way too broken, but then at low elo they can finally play it.
Small buff to Chem Baron, TLDR. On the small side, Enforcer 10 no longer confiscates items from non-champions. It's almost actually amazing the number of reports I got of 10 Enforcer stole my Golem's emblems.
Yeah, I've seen
definitely more than 20 reports of this directly to me, which was pretty interesting. But that's not a problem anymore. That's fixed. Enforcer 10 also just no longer confiscates emblems. We don't need it to disable your traits before the fight starts. So there you go. Family. After activating Family 5, heist progress becomes visible at the bottom of the tooltip.
Okay.
Cool. Pit Fighter 8, definitely overperforming for what it is. Doesn't need to be this good for +2 emblems for a level 8 comp. So the true damage and the percent heal is going down. It's still going to have like a 2.5 average finish or whatever.
Okay.
It's just a little less powerful than it is. And then Rebel gets the world's tiniest nudge. All we're doing is changing when it activates from 20% missing health to 25% missing health. Still the same power, still the same stun duration, very tiny.
Okay.
But 10 Rebel was actually way too good for what it is.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be on 10 Portal levels of power, not 10 Eldritch levels of power. So the retrigger timer is getting nerfed pretty hard here. So
Yeah, 10 Rebel is insane.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
No
one
complaint.
cost champions. Pretty straightforward here. Morgana, Trundle, Zyra, all kind of weaker on the one cost side. They're getting buffed. That's it. Pretty simple. Morgana will do a little bit more damage. It's like a 5% buff. Zyra's secondary waves will do more damage. She does plenty to the primary, but the secondary will do more damage. Cool. And Trundle will heal a little bit more, allowing for Bruiser and Scrap to be a little bit better in the early game.
Trolling.
Cool.
The Trundle augment.
On the small side, Draven's tooltip has been reworded to better explain that he doesn't need IE for his axes to critically strike.
Yeah.
Cool. Powder gets a very slight nudge, mostly at 1 star, and then 2 star, a little less at 3 star, percentage-wise, to try to just make sure that like the people who are trying to play backline Powder can do well. Also compensates for some of the ambusher changes. We don't want Powder to be unplayable. There's probably some work to be done here to make sure that backline is more playable than frontline, but what can you do? And Vex 3 gets a pretty big buff here. 10% buff for Vex 3.
That's a really big buff.
So that if you get Vex out of a worth the wait box, you don't feel like you lose.
Okay, so they buffed Vex and they buffed Morgana's, and right now on PB, Visionary Reroll is a thing. Because they also, spoiler, but they also buff Renata. So they actually have some Visionary buffs across the board that really helps. I tried Zyra Reroll. It felt okay. It didn't feel that much better. Trundle, I guess maybe you can take trolling and you're not actually trolling. And it's interesting that Mortdog has acknowledged that frontline Powder is just way better than backline Powder. So interesting notes there. But for the most part, try Visionary Reroll if you have a chance.
Camille. Yeah, she's a little strong. Our read on her before we launched was that 1 and 2 star were strong and that 3 star might struggle. It did not struggle. It killed everything. It murdered everything and killed everything.
Whoa.
So we're nerfing her healing from 40%
man.
to 33%. We're nerfing her damage lightly at 1 and 2 star. So 240 to 230. Heavily at 3 star from 300 to 260. And we're lowering the AP portion by half almost.
Jeez.
This is for the Hodge AP that she was getting, any Titans AP she was getting. She'll benefit less from those. Now, if you're looking at this plus Ambusher plus any other changes and going, wow, they've killed Camille, balance thrashing. No, we didn't. She's fine. She's playable. It's fine. So
Playable. She beat the Warwick too. I mean, that's partially because Warwick is not great, plus bad positioning, plus Camille setup is insane. I will say that my initial read was that Camille was still winning a lot of lobbies, but then I recognized that she was just an easy build on PB to execute because we knew how to play her. I think Camille is going to be gated by Augment and artifacts. Like and that's fine. Like that just means you can't play Camille anytime you open up a Camille and have a single component of Hand of Justice. On live right now, you drop 1 Camille, you have a glove or a tier, and people just type Camille indefinite, and it is pretty correct to do that. And I don't think you can do that as often. Now you have to have like a good setup for Camille, and that makes it much more reasonable. But maybe I'm wrong and we optimize it further. But I think on PB so far, she seems like she's still winning if you have a good setup. If you don't, I've seen it gone 4th or 5th a lot.
it's fine. We were off by this much. It's fine. Nocturne. Nocturne has been struggling except with artifacts. And so Nocturne will get a bit of a buff here to his attack speed. I think this will make Nocturne pretty playable. And if you have Fishbones and Sniper's Focus, he'll be really, really, really good. So definitely some cool Nocturne builds out there now that will be a little bit better. Renata getting a pretty chunky buff here, close to 10% here. It's like an 8% buff. But Renata will now be doing some damage here. Mm-hmm. From what we've seen on PBE, this actually makes Renata kind of playable, which is kind of nice to see. And then speaking of things that are also getting a little bit more playable, Tristana combined with the Artillerist buff. Expect to see some reroll Tristanas in your game now, hopefully. Yep. With her big, giant cannonballs. Those will do a lot of damage. So, yeah.
Why
see how
did he
many
look
stacks
at
you can
me?
get up to.
What?
And then finally, Ziggs. Ziggs gets a very light buff to his primary damage and a little bit to his mini bomb damage. But hopefully this makes Ziggs a little bit more exciting as well. So, like I said, 4 buffs, 1 nerf here so far. So it's not that Akali really needed the nerf heavily, but the problem was we had to buff all the other quick strikers, Nocturne, Ambessa, and Tips Twisted Fate, you'll see later. And Akali 3 was actually outside of her framework. The normal scaling here would be about 540, 550. So we decided to just put her back to normal framework scaling as kind of the nerf so that we weren't just over buffing Quick Striker here. So Akali does kind of pay the price so that we could buff the other champions. Vander's tooltip has been reworded to better explain that his ability can't crit without spell crit. So if you want Vander to crit, you're gonna need IE. And then Zeri gets a really light touch here. What we don't want to do is have everyone who is playing Cog now play Zeri and just go, it's the same comp. But Zeri is in a weird spot where, like, typically if you're playing Firelight, you're re-rolling Scar and Cog. So she doesn't really have a great identity. That being said, if you get one early with the Ginsus, you should feel good about it. And so kind of a light nudge here. We'll see if that works out.
Okay, so Zeri buff feels inconsequential to me. I played Zeri primary. I even hit like Zeri 3. I had worth the wait. Did not feel that good. I didn't know Vander couldn't crit without ability damage, so that's good. I thought it was kind of like Draven, so good to know that clarification. I wish that was more obvious, but I guess there's no way to tell. Akali nerf, like he said, felt like out of nowhere. But I'm going to tell you, Quick Striker reroll is very good on PvE so far. I don't think it's like... I don't think it's like oppressive good without I think it's going to be the same thing as Camille. I think Artifact, Nocturne, Akali is insane, and then like without it it's like pretty okay. But I think it's basically the same thing, just melee reroll with artifacts. Remember, there's Artifact Anvil coming, so keep an eye for that. Ziggs is okay. We saw one game where someone actually recombobbed a worth the wait into a Ziggs 3 on 3-2. They tried to fast 9 and then they went like 6th or 7th. So I don't think Ziggs is like auto win if that happens. Like they buffed it, they played around it. They played like Black Rose, Ziggs 3. But it didn't end up working out very well. But I did see some people re-roll Ziggs in general and land solid top 4. So I think there's probably something there. Just not that impressive. And then Tristana actually has a lot of potential. And remember, they didn't just buff Artillerists, they also buffed some emissaries. He talked about they buffed Ambessa. And so Tristana actually has a little bit more buffs than just straight up Artillerist herself. She does seem viable on this patch.
All right, 3 cost. Probably one of the more interesting changes here. I think Blitzcrank right now is probably one of the least purchased champions. Doesn't really have an amazing place. People aren't really excited to use him. Well, we're buffing his shield. And remember, we also have the Automata buff.
Yeah.
So Blitzcrank actually kind of going to be a beast next patch. Should be able to tank, use that Dominator scaling to tank even more. So hopefully that gets Blitzcrank into the playable line.
He's very good.
Gangplank. This is the melee form Gangplank, who basically sees no play. Wasn't happy with the design here, so I've asked it to be removed. No longer cleanses negative effects on cast. This did some really gross things when it was working. For example, it would cleanse all Malzahar dots, and it would cleanse anti-heal and then heal himself. It did some pretty unhealthy things for the game. He just like hard countered specific comps completely. I don't like that. So now he won't be a hard counter, but to compensate, his spell damage is going up a pretty chunky amount here. My read is I don't think this makes him like S tier or anything like that, but should make him a little stronger if you have him early. Maybe actually consider the melee form. So,
okay.
Loris gets a pretty big buff here. 10 mana off his spell to let him cast more often, and then plus 25 on the shield. Not really that big a buff, but hopefully gets Loris along the same lines as other 3 costs. Speaking of which, Scar, the secret terror of the Kog'Maw comp, his mana cost is going to go down. And then the big thing is he just did a lot of damage. Like for a tank that also healed constantly and dashed around, that spell did a lot of damage. So we're hitting the spell pretty hard here.
Wow.
Because damage isn't really what he should be doing anyway. And then at 1 star, he's actually getting a light buff to his heal. He's not really that good at 1 star. 2 star stays the same, and then 3 star, very light nerf to his heal. So, And then Twisted Fate, another 3 cost that kind of hasn't really found his place here. Again, Quick Striker buffs we had to be careful of. And then Enforcer, it's like him and Loris getting buffed and Caitlyn getting buffed. So you got to be careful.
Yeah.
But that being said, is still going to be doing a little more with his yellow card damage. That's the single target, so he can burst someone down. And then providing a little more utility to his team with the heal to help those Quick Strikers stay alive. So
yeah, so they're buffing all, like they said, that's why they nerfed the Kali. Twisted Fate, he's actually pretty reliable, and even in some reroll comps, or reroll variations of Quick Striker, we've seen Twisted Fate 3 actually do a pretty good amount of damage. I don't think he can be primary, but as a secondary, like leftover damage, let's say you can't hit Nocturne, maybe there's a automaton player, and they're just taking all the Nocturnes out. I've seen people play a Kali 3, Twisted Fate 3, and they do really well, and it actually lines up better because they're both AP damage sources. And that makes you feel like you don't have to activate the automata on Nocturne, and it seemed like it was totally fine. I haven't really felt the lowers buffs, but I think he just feels probably better. Blitzcrank is really good in the 6. If you get 6 automata and you have him tank, he's insane. Definitely activate Dominator. And this Scar unit, man, this Scar unit was just straight up better than Elise a lot of times. He would just if he was on the same side as your carry, he would just zoop, dash to your backline, just perma-stun your carry. They couldn't kill it. And he would they would feed more mana to him, and he would cast again and stun you again. It was so obnoxious. So I'm glad that they nerfed Scar. He's not even that important part of the story of the Arcane story. So I'm down for him to take a little bit of a backseat. He was way too good. I don't know what to think about this melee. I actually, this is probably some of the least I've played around. I think I've played GP melee like twice this entire set, and I played like 200 games. So I don't know what to think about this one. I guess I'll try it more. I didn't even realize this was a buff. I played PB for like 3 days. I didn't even realize they buffed this.
On the small side,
there's more
Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw is like the champion with the weirdest shape again for 2 sets in a row now.
2.
Kog'Maw is like disgusting in stage 2 and 3. Really, really good. And then actually kind of falls off a cliff pretty much. Unless you hit all the cap, then he can start to win games. That being said, we also nerfed Scar, so that hurts his main build. We did buff Automata, though, so basically, we gave him the world's lightest slap on the wrist at 1 and 2 star here to slow him down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, again, we want Kog'Maw to be fun. He's supposed to be, like, one of those easy-to-play carries that you slap a Ginsu's on and you have a good time.
Yeah.
So we don't want to take him out of the meta or anything. But, yeah, kind of had to balance around that, so... Smeech gets +2 AD. This is to help Ambusher a little bit.
Cool.
Again, it's funny. If you look at Camille and Smeech, and you have a 3-star of each, which one's better?
Camille.
Usually the Camille.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. To win the game, you need the Camille and the Smeech, but like you still kind of need the Camille more. Smeech should be more exciting. So Smeech is getting +2 AD, very light buff. And then Swain. Honestly, we probably need to go harder here at some point, but the idea here is that 1-star Swain in the early game, pretty nutty. Like, he'll heal a lot,
Stage
and no one
2
really has
demon.
the damage to slow that down. So he can do a lot of work here. So we're lightly tapping that, like, world's tiniest nerf here. But at 3-star, he actually kind of falls over a cliff. He barely survives that much. So we're giving him a little bit more heal and a little bit more heal per second. Hopefully to help stuff like, the Form Swapper reroll, the Sorcerer line. Again, do I think this is going to make Sorcerer line playable?
Nope.
Yeah.
I tried it.
But it should nudge it. So
I had 8 Sorcerer, Swain 3 with Crown Guarded. I mean, okay, Crown Guard probably isn't that good on Swain, but like I thought that like it would be pretty decent at least, and he still just got completely torched by the meta. And with like things like Victor and whatnot coming into play, like stunning Swain at really key times where he's supposed to heal is like a huge part of it. Like as Victor's lifting him up, he's supposed to cast and heal. Like stuff like this, just like it really gives people like Swain a hard time. I already talked about Kog'Maw a lot. Smeech, why is the only thing I want to say is why does he look like this in his portrait, man? Smeech looked like he hit the Shimmer Bong one too many times. But yeah, 2 AD is nice, I guess. It's okay, but yeah, no comment really on these 3.
all right, 4 costs. Ambessa underperforming a little, not heavily though. And the thing is, she's also an emissary and a quick striker, so I had to be careful. But gets 10 off her mana, so she can cast more often. And her slam gets a pretty chunky 12% buff or so.
It hurts a lot
your
now.
slam will actually feel a little more satisfying.
Yes.
Should be more worthy of investing in. Cool.
And Bess is very good.
Mundo. This is
And they buffed 2 Conqueror, which actually helps her splash like a lot.
a weird change. Probably the hardest one to explain. This is not meant to be a buff or a nerf on the aggregate, but individual cases certainly got buffed and individual cases certainly got nerfed. Basically, what we did was we took, for both his spell heal and his damage, we took some out of the health scaling and put it back into the baseline. So at neutral, like if you have 0 item Mundo, this is a buff. He is healing more and doing more damage. But if you had a 6 bruiser Mundo, this is a nerf. This is a pretty heavy nerf. You're going to be healing a lot less. But if you have a Dominator Mundo, this is a buff. You're going to be healing more if you get to that 2nd and 3rd cast. So basically, this is just a shifting power away from him, especially from Bruiser Mundo.
Yep.
Bruiser Mundo will still be good, but it didn't need to be quite as good as it was before. And then into things like Dominator and some AP items and stuff like that. So again, overall, a bit neutral, but his highest highs are nerfed and his other cases are better.
Okay.
Garen quickly became sort of and if you go back and look at that clip where I explained the meta and I'm like, Garen's fine. Yeah, I was wrong. Garen's not fine. Garen's
not fine at all.
In particular, I'll admit, I didn't realize his emissary bonus worked on himself, which is weird.
Oh.
But it just made the value of every Warmogs on Garen just disgusting because it's basically 3x 20%. Like,
yes.
Pretty nutty. We still want Garen to be pretty strong, especially in like a Watcher comp and anything. But I don't think he needed that much value of just like free HP for the team. Woohoo! So Emissary is getting nerfed all the way from 20% to 12%.
Yeah.
This is a big, big nerf.
Justified.
To that in particular. So
that being said, Garen is still really good on PvE. Like, you know what? This is actually really encouraging because even Mortdog sometimes reads and doesn't understand. That makes me feel better because, man, sometimes I read it, I'm like, I thought I understood, and I guess I don't. So I thought everyone understood that, but I guess Mort didn't either as well. So very humbling for him to admit that. But Garen is still good on PvE, so this is not bad at all. Like yes, it's like, okay, a huge nerf. But like, it goes to show you how insane Garen was. Especially if you got Warmogs on him. This is way too much.
Heimerdinger. This is probably, if you look at all the changes, I'm sure there are people out there going, Heimerdinger didn't need nerfed. It was secretly Malzahar. Heimer got a pretty light nerf here. This is actually mostly to compensate for
Academy.
Raptor. He was just too much power in Academy right now. And so we wanted to just pull a little bit out of him. He can still do a lot of damage with like the blue buff and stuff like that. But again, he got off pretty lightly here. Just tiny nerf to Heimerdinger. Vi is another one that was really struggling. So Vi gets a pretty big buff here. A little more spell shield, a little more damage on the main target punch, and a little more slam AD. So Vi hopefully maybe should be worth putting items on this patch. That's the hope. So
big buffs. Vi feels a lot better as well. I will say that she doesn't feel oppressive. This looks like a lot. Like, oh my god, so many green numbers. But she feels like decent. Before she just felt terrible. Now she feels pretty solid. But maybe that's what they wanted to do in Arcane, you know? Because did Vi do anything? I mean, it's questionable. And maybe they wanted to capture that vibe going into set 13. Heimer, he doesn't feel that good on PvE. I think he's actually pretty mid, like weaker side. It wouldn't surprise me if Heimerdinger is actually the weakest 4 cost now out of all of them, because they buffed like Vi. Like Vi was the weakest 4 cost, and now they give her a pretty sizable buff. And Bessa was also considered to be bottom, and now they actually play together. And Bessa and Vi play really well off each other because Twisted Fate is a quick striker and Vi is an enforcer, so you kind of connect them. And it ends up working really well. So I could easily see their stats being tied together, performing well, and Heimerdinger drops. So it wouldn't surprise me if Heimer's the worst performing 4 cost now. I do agree. I think Heimer as a solo carry is good stage 2, 3. If you hit him, obviously stage 2. But stage 4, he kind of hits like a huge wall where his duo carry needs to be online and powerful. Otherwise, you kind of fall off. So I'm not entirely sure.
On the small side, Corky, 63 AD was a weird number. And he gets a buff. Plus Artillerist, by the way. Now he's at 65 AD. So hopefully this plus 2 AD combined with the changes, combined with everything else, Corky should be a good 4 cost carry.
He already is good.
Amazing.
I think Corgi's actually good already.
All right, 5 cost. Caitlyn, 80 to 82.
I just think Scrap sucks and Artillery sucks, but I think Corgi's pretty good.
AD. Yes, we keep using these tiny numbers to do very light changes because Caitlyn didn't need 5 more AD. That would have been too much. And then in addition, the bombs just were not very satisfying. So the bombs are going to get a bit more damage here, go from 150 to 180. That's a pretty big buff, actually. It's like a 20% buff to the bomb damage. It's not a 20% to her whole spell or anything, but like if you clump against Caitlyn, you might actually find yourself getting like bombed out, especially like a Caitlyn 2 with IE can do some pretty good damage. So cool. Jace, very light buff here, about 10% to melee form's main target damage. He just kind of knocked people around and wasn't really killing them. So if you want to invest items in him, he'll do a little bit more. It's pretty tiny.
Oh, I didn't think he was supposed to kill people.
Malzahar. Look, on the one hand, I love Malzahar. On the other hand, he's the scourge of this patch, and everyone's pretty tired of Malzahar 1 dealing 10,000 damage and destroying teams.
Yeah.
The dot with infinite duration is definitely something we'll learn from.
Yep.
That being said, he's still a 5 cost, and he still is supposed to be impressive. 5 costs are supposed to be impressive. I just think everyone's a little sick of him from this meta.
Yeah.
He is getting a very large nerf here. He's going to take 5 more for his mana, so it'll take him a little while to cast. And then the spell is almost a 20% nerf here. Basically is a 20% nerf.
Yeah.
So 20% plus mana. This is like a 25% nerf to Malzahar. Pretty big nerf. That being said, he's probably where he's supposed to be now. He's like a 5 cost that dots people and does damage. Cool.
Yeah. I think this is maybe this is why Heimer feels bad on PvE, because we were playing him with nerf Heimer and nerf Malzahar, and it just felt like a lot worse. This nerf is definitely very felt. Caitlyn has definitely felt a lot better and on PvE, but I don't know if she's splashable still. I think she still has problems with like what comp she fits into, similar to Jinx. And then I didn't even know Jace melee form was supposed to kill. I thought it was supposed to just like CC. So, oh wait, there's a Rumble change as well.
And then finally, Rumble. Rumble, there's just 2 small nerfs to 2 of his buffs. Flamethrower will do a little bit less damage, and Self-Destruct will do 20% less damage. Self-Destruct in particular, especially in like a 6 Sentinel comp, was doing kind of nutty amounts of damage. So,
yep.
A little bit of a nerf there.
Makes sense.
On the small side, Jinx 3 does more damage.
All right.
Cool.
Good.
Jinx 3. Great. And then Savika. If you ever got Savika to hit the jackpot, it's pretty rare, but where she like stands there and coins are flying out of her, it's pretty rare. But when you do, you're supposed to feel good about it, not go, why isn't she killing anything? Why is nothing dying? She was just doing too little damage. So we're doubling the damage of the jackpot AD.
Okay.
So that you get all those coins and things will actually die, and
Bingo.
the jackpot should feel like a jackpot.
Okay.
Items. Bramble Vest, still a little weaker than we'd like it, plus 2% more bonus health. Great. Hodge. The new rework to Hodge has been great. I think it has made the item incredibly flexible and fun to play. It works great on people who have crit. It's just nice on things like Quick Strikers and Melee, where it's like, cool, you get AD and AP when you need it, and it switches to more Omnivamp when you need it. That being said, Bloodthirster is 20% Omnivamp. Hand of Justice did not need to be 30%.
Yeah.
That's too much. So we're nerfing it to 24, 12 baseline, 24 max. This does not kill the item. Anyone who thinks this kills the item, you're being silly. If anything, this makes the item fair and still incredibly flexible. So, cool. Luden's underperforming a little bit, so Luden's gets plus 5 AD and AP. Silvermere Dawn overperforming a little bit. We're taking off 15 of the armor and MR.
A little bit.
Everyone loves Silvermere Dawn Violets and Camille's, so at least maybe now you'll kill them. And then Suspicious Trenchcoat has been really strong on melee champions for a while, so it's going to get a little less health on split and 10% less attack speed. It'll still be a very good item. This is, again, just like nerfs where we can get it, but like it's still going to be a very good item.
Yeah. Okay. Shout out to the EU player that really wanted Bramblevest to get nerfed. They kept last set they kept saying Bramblevest was OP. They need to get nerfed. So shout out to them. Hand of Justice. I mean, you guys heard me say it, right? Hodge, Sunfire, they like overbuffed it. It was way too good. Very good slams. This makes sense. This also does kind of nerf Camille as well. That Omnivamp is a really big deal. Good buff. Justified nerfs. Nothing else. Like these are just they're still good though. They're not bad. These are not like over nerfs. These are still really, really good items.
Okay. We're like halfway there. Augments.
Really?
There are new augments and augment changes. I'm just going to go through fast. I'm not going to talk about them all too much. Delayed start was an augment that was meant to be there at launch. We've turned it on. It's a silver augment. Sell your board and bench. Gain 4 random 2-star 1-cost champions. Disable your shop for the next 3 rounds. It's a fun little AFK-like augment. Cool. Aurelia hero augment gets buffed. Cool.
Love
Crafted
it.
crafting. 1 less reroll. Pretty big nerf. This might make the augment bad now, ? But it certainly was too good before.
Yes.
Dummify. This gives us a lever where it now gains 250 health per stage. Realistically, this doesn't change Dummify much, but again, it just gives us a balance lever, which is nice to have.
Okay.
Health is wealth. Now only grants 8 gold and no longer counts healing done to non-champions. Small explosives here. I hope this works. This was the powder hero augment. Well, it didn't. It didn't work. It's gone. Goodbye, augment.
They're disabling Powder's hero augment.
Mad Chemist. This augment's overperforming a little bit. People figured this one out. This is probably the best hero augment in the game right now.
Yes.
So we're nerfing the damage. A pretty healthy amount here. A little like 15%. So it needed a nerf. Pumping up. This is only the base attack speed, so it's like a 2 attack speed nerf. Not really a big deal. Support mining and support mining plus. This is a pretty big nerf here.
Yes.
So the amount of deaths required to get these goes down from like 9 to 7. But the reward goes from a support anvil to a random support item. For a silver augment, letting you pick your support item was way too good. This is a nerf that it needed. So you're just going to get a random support item. So if you get the one you don't want, is what it is. New augment table scraps. This is one that was on PvE and we had to disable because it was too good. And then we had to fix the text. Now it says, after the next 4 carousels, gain 1 unit that was not taken, and its item gain 1 gold. This used to work for the entire game, and so if you survived, it would be like full items worth of values. It was pretty insane. So, yeah. And then trolling gets a light buff. I don't think this buff does too much, but the mana reduction from Trundle goes from 40 to 50.
Okay, so this buff, trolling, I saw someone play it. They still went bot forward. They actually had a really good setup for it. You would think this plus the Trundle buff would be good, but it seemed like Mad Chemist actually, I think this augment, if this augment stat showed, would actually be really high. I think it'd probably be like a 4.0. I think people did not understand how strong this was because people were not itemizing Singe correctly at the beginning. But once they got correct setup on it, Singe was straight up like, this augment was really, 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 really good. So, and I think it still will be really good. And I still think it's the best hero augment. Sad about this. I did not know this was the case. Irelia feels a lot better now. I actually played it and it felt like she was going crazy. And remember, you want to build her as a crit unit, so this scaling actually can accelerate a lot more. So just keep that in mind. I don't know what to think about table scraps. This feels like, so you don't get this till stage 5. So this is saying when you pick this on stage 5, get a random item. Am I understanding that correctly? Why would I not just take item grab bag? Why would I just take item grab bag? And I can get a random item now? Or am I misunderstanding it? No, it's for the next 4 carousels. Okay. You're saying you get okay. So you don't. It stops working after a certain point. Okay, so I have the inverse. Okay. Got it. I understand now. So I mean, hey, the wording is tricky, man. Also, support mining. Is anyone gonna pick this anymore? It feels like. I mean, it is a random support item. Okay, they might. But like, it does like the 5. I think support mining 1 probably feels a lot better because you can play around it a lot easier. No, on 2-1, the 5 is actually fine because you get it at the beginning of stage 3. You can plan around it. But the support mining plus, I'm not so sure about it. I'm not so sure. I think I would take it on 2-1.
Lastly, Patience is a Virtue is now exclusive from Fire Sale, so we don't have to deal with that issue anymore. And then just a text note that Recombobulator now has a max tier of 5. No, you cannot recombobulate 6 costs.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Gold. First new augment, Betrayal. This is where Maddie and Ambessa work together. We had to wait to ship this because it was a spoiler. But Maddie always targets Ambessa's target with her.
There are arcane spoilers in this batch notes. Do not watch and proceed in case you guys can spoil. Sorry, more dog should have warned everyone.
Ability and attacks every round where either gets at least 2 kills, gaining Maddie. This one's interesting because you can actually get like Maddie 4 off of it if you play it right, which is kind of cool.
Oh.
And with Ambessa being really strong now, if you have an Enforcer emblem start, this is a great augment. Pretty fun augment. Give it a try. Experiment Crest. Now that Warwick is around, we are adding the augments for Experiment Crest. So gain an Experiment emblem and an ergot. Academic Research has been re-enabled after the bug fix.
Cool.
All That Shimmers. This is a big nerf, but it's been needing it for a while. All That Shimmers no longer increases the interest cap to 7. It's just get a gold generating artifact.
Huge.
Cool. Arcane Retribution. This is the sorcerer augment that you probably shouldn't be picking anyway. Now gives a Lux and a Vladimir. This one's really hard to play. It does work, but you have to like place Lux and Zyra in the front line as bombs, which is weird. But generally, if you can, unless you're really comfortable with this, avoid this one. This one's hard to play. Black Rose Crest is now banned on 2-1. You're not going to get a free Black Rose start. You're going to have to wait and get into it later.
Okay.
Crown Guarded now increases the shield duration by 5 seconds. This was a big deal because you would get like Crown Guarded, put 2 Crown Guards on a champion, have this amazing 4,000 health shield,
and then nothing.
And then after 8 seconds, it'd go away. Really kind of lame. So now with Crown Guarded, you might actually put more than 1 Crown Guard on somebody and feel good about it. So
nope,
cool.
You won't. But I think
Crimson
it'll
Pact. This is the Vladimir hero augment. Now the tooltip now matches the behavior, which is good, and the damage amp per cast goes from 7 to 10.
Okay.
So buff for Vladimir.
Buff.
Enforcer Crest no longer grants a Loris. The augment's especially going to be even better this patch now that Enforcer's champions got buffed and other things got nerfed. It doesn't need to also give a Loris. So
this is not the biggest buff to Vlad. You know what the biggest buff to Vlad is? They increased the bag sizes back to where it should be. If you guys didn't know, current bag sizes on live are bugged. They are not bugged, but it's smaller than intended to be. They're supposed to be at 25 copies of two cost, but it's at 20. The biggest buff to Crimson Pact is that they are increasing the number of Vlads in the pool. Because you guys have watched me pick this augment, right? And I'm just like, I don't understand. Why am I not hitting Vlad? There's only like one or two Black Rose players here. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. And you just cannot hit. So there's a huge deal to that. That is the biggest buff to Vlad here's augment. Because man, my God, you could not hit Vlad 3 at all. This is a completely unhittable augment. Completely unhittable augment. That's not saving this augment. I think this augment's actually not bad. But like if you hit. But part of it was that you needed 2 things. You need to hit Vlad 3, which is impossible. And the second impossible thing is you need to hit a Garen. If you can hit a Garen and you can hit Vlad 3, the augment's good. But well, at least they tackled half of that. I've never seen this augment on PV, so I can't comment on it. But flavor-wise, it sounds really awesome. And this is a big nerf, but All That Shimmers is extremely OP this set, especially because Gambler's Blade on Cog is so good. So it's a big nerf, but it's justified.
Fractured Crystals. This augment was pretty bad. Automata was also bad, but even with Automata being good, as I explained, the procs don't really do that much or do that often. So the proc goes from 50% to 70%. Cool. Gloves Off, the bonus damage goes from 75% to 85%. Cool. Golemify, much like Dumbify, we have this HP per stage thing that allows it to scale. It's not much. It's not going to do much. Health is Wealth 2 now grants 5 less gold. No longer counts healing done to non-champs. Great. Loot Explosion. Well, when Camille is really strong, it's really fun when she's also printing 15 gold a turn.
Yeah.
So stage 4 plus loot has been lowered by about 15%, but the base drop probability has increased a little bit. Should make it a little bit more stable, a little less high rolly. Lone Hero gets a bit of a buff to the durability. So should be a little bit more fun. Mirrored monetization. The initial gold goes from 6 to 2. Cool. Moonlight. The bonus stats go from 20% to 35%. Cool. Rigged Shop. I think this one's silver, actually. So this is in the wrong section.
It's a silver.
But this one's banned on 2-1 now. It was a terrible augment to take on 2-1. Pretty good on 3-2, though. So Scavenger. This is a good tempo item if you have a really strong comp. Number of items goes from 4 to 5. Cool. And then Shop Glitch, the time between rerolls goes from 3 to 2.5% or 2.5 seconds.
Oh, they're buffing it.
So you'll get 1 or 2 more rerolls in Shop Glitch. So a little bit of a buff there.
The only thing I'll say is that Gloves Off Vander, it makes Vander worse. So this is a justified buff. They're also buffing this, so this may be like me automaton.
Man, I'm getting more dogged again.
Everything else kind of makes sense. Nothing too crazy here. Yeah, everything makes sense here.
Goes from 3 to 2.5% or 2.5 seconds. So you'll get 1 or 2 more rerolls.
Vogue, thank you so much.
In Chop Glitch. So a little bit of a buff there. Starry Night now displays the star up odds in Tooltip. Remember, those go up the higher you level.
Love that.
So yeah. Pumping up 2% less AS. Tower Defense. Our poor Tower. Salute. He loses 25% of his attack speed. So sad. Two Trick re-enabled after the bug fix. War for the Undercity. This was a really frustrating augment if somebody else also had it. So this is now only offered to 1 player per game.
I'm good.
And then Welcome to the Playground no longer triggers on non-combat rounds and can't appear if any other player has gloves off and vice versa. This was a really frustrating thing where like you would try to apply the Vander hero augment and see somebody with Welcome to the Playground and you're like, guess I'll die. So we're getting rid of that situation.
Good changes.
All right, Prismatic. 4 new Prismatic augments. 3 of these are quests to get 6 costs. They only appear on 4-2. So for example, a Change of Fate. You get a blue buff immediately after starting a round with 60 gold and winning a player combat. Those are 2 separate things. Gain a Mel and a Hextech Gunblade. Task can be completed in any order.
Okay.
Or gain an Adaptive Helm. After you upgrade 9 champions, gain a Victor and a Jeweled Gauntlet. So you can see the totality of them is 2 full items and a 6 cost, which is pretty good for a Prismatic, but you have to do the quest. And the quest can backfire pretty hard. You know, if you take what you truly are, for example, which is deal 35 damage to other players, and then proceed to lose every fight because you're down a Prismatic, pretty rough. So some fun, high-risk things here to allow you to get 6 costs a little more frequently. Experiment Crown, as we mentioned, those are in. Gain an Experiment Emblem, a Bloodthirster, and an Urgot. Anger Issues has not really found a place in this meta.
Yeah.
So the resist per Rage Blade is going to go up from 35% to 45%. At what cost is a little too good, so just a little less XP at the start. Calculated Enhancement. Last row becomes last 2 rows. This allows you some more clever positioning. You can put people in the 3rd row. Quick Strikers.
That's a pretty big
benefit
buff
from this. So
that helps a lot.
Black Rose Crown. This is the Prismatic that during PBE was the best by a significant margin. We have re-enabled it, and it grants a Spear of Shojin, but it is banned on 2-1. You can't get it on 2-1. So,
okay. It's still really good,
Enforcer
though.
Crown, instead of granting a Loris, grants a terrible human being. A Maddie.
Wow.
And then Exalted Adventure has been changed a little bit. Exalted Adventure no longer grants rerolls, but instead grants a lesser duplicator on select and at the start of every stage to help you finish the adventure a little bit. So that should help.
That's a huge buff. Like now you get a duplicator because as you guys know, it's much more expensive to pay for copies number 7 and 8 of a unit than 1 and 2. So this is a really, really big buff to the Exalted Adventure. Anytime someone's picked it in PvE scrims so far, if they get like something that's really good for it, it's been pretty powerful. Like Camille, Nocturne. I even seen people play Ziggs, and they did pretty well with it. So it's a huge buff. Definitely take it. Do you guys think so? Black Rose Crown used to give you a Morello and a Cassio. Now it gives you just a Spear of Shojin. I feel like that's just as good. Maybe I'm too Black Rose pilled, but I'm pretty sure that this is actually like in some ways a buff to the Black Rose Crown, just because Shojin's such a good item and it actually plays directly into like what the comp needs. So maybe not a buff, but like it's like comparable. It wouldn't surprise me if it's exactly the same amount of stats on it as it was previously. Good buff. I mean, big buff. I'm not sure of how good it is. Anger Issues. Yeah, I agree. I actually have not seen Anger Issues at all. I will say that out of all these 3 prismatic 6-cost stuff, I think Mel's is the hardest because blue buff is situational in terms of who can actually use it. I've been in a spot where I was streaking and I felt really good and like, yeah, maybe I can convert off of it. I've taken this and then failed to win for the rest of the game. Because I was down in prismatic. The blue buff didn't go on anybody because blue buff's pretty narrow right now in the current set. And then you need to start around with 60 gold and then win a combat. So then you have you're actually incentivized to roll your gold and then econ back up to 60. I did the other way where I tried to roll above 60 and that wasn't good at all. So what you need to do is you need to roll to like 30 and then in 2-3 rounds get the Mel. And that's ideally how you actually play. It's kind of tricky. This one is kind of easy if you save up your gold. And then this one just requires you to win 3 times. That's all you need to do. But then the problem is you get a Warwick. So what do you do after that?
Ghosts of the Friends Past. I am not particularly pleased with this augment, but it's been reworded to state that the bonuses last for all current and future teammates. The HP has been gutted. You can see here it went from 12 to 5, but the AP has gone up. Hopefully this encourages some other uses than just give your team 1,000 plus health, but we'll see. We'll see. This augment's still on my my shit list. Going long.
Okay, I need to call out one person in chat who's so confident about this. 5 LMAO, just disable it, man. We actually just watched someone pick this and win out anyways. And it was 5 HP, Ego Illusions and Scrims, picked out and went first with it. And it was a giga first. He beat every cap board. And the opinion that this person shares is actually something that a lot of people have perpetuated. And I'm just telling you, man, this augment still might, like, obviously it's a huge nerf to say it the least, but it's still won anyways, and it wasn't even close. Just to give you an example of how broken it actually is. So, I mean, it's like, and we had people wager, like everyone was like, he's still going 8th, he's still bot 4, the spot is still terrible, and then he won 14 rounds in a row and just and capped out.
Is now exclusive from invested. This is just to stop you from creeping yourself. Prismatic Pipeline. This gets a pretty big nerf here. It used to say get extra loot from gold augments or gold orbs.
It's insane augments.
That's gone. That's just completely cut. And the extra loot from prismatic orbs has been reduced by about 30%. So yes, you get the prismatic orb, but not much else anymore. This is a pretty big nerf to this augment. Still going to be pretty good, I think, but definitely not as good as it was before. Quality over quantity. This is a pretty big change that honestly, from what we've seen, makes the augment really good. So definitely consider this one. But units holding radiant items also gain 12% health. So really good at 2-1 and 3-2 now. Use that extra health to tempo off of. Use those radiant items. So pretty good augment. Trait unlock geniuses. This is the Heimer and Echo one that really didn't feel like a prismatic.
Yeah.
The damage is going up.
Why is it prismatic?
Because it's a prismatic, you get a free jeweled gauntlet. So should help that out a bit. Trifecta was in a pretty good spot here, but is going to get nerfed to the attack speed and the health. And then Void Swarm gets changed in Hyper Roll.
Okay, so why is this prismatic, but then Unlikely Duo gives you a Savika and a Jinx? Gives you 2/5 cost. That part I don't get, but why not just make this a gold tier augment? The problem with Geniuses is not only is it prismatic, but Heimer doesn't fit in the board very easily with Echo. The correct setup is to actually just not activate Academy or Visionary onto Echo. The only way that I've been able to see anyone connected is you go Heimer, Rel, Rumble, and then Echo. That's the only way I've seen it connected. I haven't seen it connected any other way. But yeah, quality over quantity, major buffs is doing really well. Prismatic Pipeline, I'm pretty sure it was like the second best prismatic augment behind Ghost of Friends Past. Now I'm not sure because I don't even know. I'm not gonna lie. I don't even know how good Prismatic Pipeline's loot table is. I just know that you can't miss. Like, it's just really good. So it could be entirely possible that it's still really good, but I feel like this is pretty opaque to me.
All right, we're done with augments. But don't worry, we still got anomalies. Short version here with anomalies, again, is a bunch of the ones
Party
at the
Connect,
top
agreed.
we nerfed, a bunch of ones at the bottom we buffed. It's pretty simple. The balance of these weren't too bad, but again, if we can just sandwich it, it makes it even better. So you're going to see a lot of numbers. But here we go. Arcana Overwhelming. The bonus MR goes from 50 to 65. Cool.
Okay.
Avalanche of Armor. You're going to convert your armor to AD 5% better.
Okay.
Berserker Rage. And your baseline AD and AP is going to go up by 5. Cool. Bully. The base damage is being nerfed from 18% to 12%, but the max is still 36%. So if you're actually bullying people, you get to bully them as hard, but if they're on your level, you're going to get punished for it a little bit.
I see.
Center of the universe. The orbs now orbit faster, and remember, as they orbit, they get to hit again. So this basically allows it to hit more often.
It's
and
just
the damage
faster
goes
now.
from 70 to 75.
Okay.
Cool. Comeback Story. This is probably one of the riskier buffs, and I'm just going to say it right now. If you look at the data, if you somehow were to look at the data on this one, It is the worst performing anomaly by a pretty large margin.
Yes, but
that's also confirmation bias because people who tend to take it are in a bad
positions.
situation.
Yes.
And then they die. And so the stats look bad on it. So right now, the expectation here is that this is going to be a pretty good one.
Yep.
Just make sure it's actually what you need to save yourself. But it can go up pretty high here. You can get a lot of damage amp from this one.
Yes,
so.
yes.
Cosmic Rhythm. This is going to make a lot of people sad. But Cosmic Rhythm has been disabled.
Oh, that's what I meant by impossible.
It's unfortunate. There are people who are like, oh, but my Maddie build, or they were looking forward to trying to get Victor with this.
They killed the comp.
Realistically, we cannot let Victor have this anomaly. We cannot let Victor cast every 4 seconds. That is not a thing that we're going to allow.
But what about
that
this
being
comp?
said, we do think this one will be back. We'll probably change it to be something like gain 25% of your mana every second.
Oh, man.
You can't gain mana any other way. That way it won't work on Victor, but can still work on people like Maddie.
Oh,
so this isn't like
back.
a goodbye forever, but it is a goodbye for now.
Man, for a second I thought it was Victover, but now we're back. Okay, all right. Well, I mean, at least it's we'll see how they implemented it. But I think Cosmic Rhythm is one of the most unique anomalies that's really interesting to think about. So I like that it exists. I guess that being said, I never picked it. I was unhappy, but I like that it exists. If that makes sense.
Dramatic Entrance. We like this one. This one's really fun. We like the coming back in and stunning. That feels good. It was a bit too much bonus health, though, so we upped the stun duration but lowered the health. Cool.
Yeah.
Fireball's just going to do a little bit less damage. Fireball was pretty good. Fortified is going to take 1 extra second per stack. Cool. Hardened Mind, 10% more bonus armor and MR. Heavy Hitter, we're lowering the cooldown on this, so you can still hit hard, just a little less or a little more often.
Okay, Mort's glazing. He's glossing past one really important thing. Dramatic Entrance timing with Victor is bananas. The way the timing works is that the Dramatic Entrance stuns and then Victor stuns. So it actually it combos extremely well with Victor. So if you ever get a Dramatic Entrance, you're probably going to be looking to play Victor already. But like the timing of it is so obnoxious. And then you layer in that, like, someone took Dramatic Entrance on their Garen, and then they played Victor, and then they played Elise and Sion, and I got literally stunned for like 5 seconds straight. I just couldn't believe it. My team was not allowed to play the game. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It was ridiculous. So it could be one of those situations where you probably should be picking up Quicksilver on your carries and things like that. I just was not allowed to play the game.
Per stack, cool. Hardened Mind, 10% more bonus armor and MR. Heavy Hitter, we're lowering the cooldown on this, so you can still hit hard, just a little less or a little more often. Kill Streak, 5 less mana per kill. This one was really good. Laser Eyes, the AP ratio goes up quite a bit, so hopefully some cool Laser Eye builds.
Okay.
Legacy of Shurima, 10% more bonus health. Mage Armor, 10% more AP to defenses. Okay. Magic Training, 5 less bonus AP or base AP. It's only the base, though. You still get a bunch from casting, so it just slows it down a little bit. Nothing Wasted. This one is probably the most controversial. It's a big nerf here, 100% to 70%. That being said, it's probably still kind of busted.
Yes.
The big thing to note about Nothing Wasted, if you don't know this yet, is the way it works is when an ally dies,
yes,
you gain 100% of their mana.
Mm-hmm.
So if an Alawi dies at like 100 out of 120, you gain 70 mana. And in addition, it works like Mana Zane, where it's stored.
Mm-hmm.
So what can happen is, like, let's say your whole front line dies and you get 400 mana, you'll just cast 4, 5, 6 times. So this one's really good, and it might need more, but that's why we're swinging so heavily on it.
Yes.
So
it's still really, really broken on Zoe, really broken on Silco. Anything that just like scales out that casting, it is insane.
1,000 cuts. This is a bit of a Kog'Maw nerf. It was one of his better ones. Just a little less true damage per auto. Cool.
A little wasted.
Power Absorption. This looks red, but is technically like mixed red-green. The number is going up. But the bug fix is a pretty big change here. Absorption AD is no longer multiplied by other percent sources of AD, which caused a lot of really weird issues. That being said, we're going to buff the AD absorbed from 5% to 9%. So should help.
Okay.
Yeah. Protective Shielding. This is another one that like
can't tell.
was
That's
really,
good.
really good that a lot of people struggled to know that was good. But the percent HP share and the shield duration was really high.
Very
So
good.
this one's been nerfed. Scuttle Familiar, a lot of the bugs have been fixed around it, and we gave it the benefit where it'll clear Shred and Sunder before calculating the armor and MR of the crab. But to compensate for that, it does need a bit of a nerf.
Okay.
So it goes from 111% to 100%.
No wonder it felt so bad. I was just like, I remember the crab coming out and then just like dying so fast. I didn't realize it was calculating the shred. Yeah, protective shielding was basically Moonstone Renewer and Light Shield Crest was really, really good. And so yeah, all this makes sense. I think Legacy of Shurima actually didn't need a buff, but everything else is good, I think.
Hopefully this is now finally playable with all the bugs fixed around it. Share Your Energy, this gets buffed. Because of it's actually like pretty over budget now, but the positioning griefing is pretty costly.
Yep.
So that's gonna get a buff. Slime Time gets a pretty big buff.
I think this
to
is
the
good
AP
now for
ratio
cops that
here.
want it.
Slow Cooker, this number should be red. This is a nerf. The max health damage goes from 4% to 3%.
Sag.
So pretty big nerf to Slow Cooker, but from what we've seen on PBE, it's still quite good.
Yeah.
Titanic Strikes gets a bit of a buff here to the cleave damage. And then probably one of the biggest nerfs here, Ultimate Hero, now has a 3-turn delay before the unit becomes 4-star.
Ouch.
This actually gives us, if it's still too strong, it'll end up being a 4-turn delay or a 5-turn delay. But it is going to be nerfed here.
delay.
It was the best performing augment by a pretty significant. It was just way over budget. So way over budget to be 4-star. And yes, it only works on 1 cost, but even for 1 cost, it was just over budget. So slowing it down. And then Wolf Familiars get a buff. So
Holy cow. 3-turn delay. So does that count PvE rounds? So it's 4-6, nothing happens. 4-7, nothing happens. 5-1, nothing happens. So you get it at 5-2. Am I understanding that correctly? 5-2, that's when you get it. So you can't really take it if you're like in a must-hit situation or you're gonna die. So you have to be like pretty far ahead. The good news is when you tend to reroll 1 cost, you tend to have some HP to preserve because you won stage 3s pretty hard. So it should be, but we'll see. I'm kind of sad about Slow Cooker. I think it's one of my favorite anomalies this set. I actually think this one is really good, just that not many comps can use it, but I think it's good in emissaries. And then I've never seen Slime Time, but someone told me that Slime Time is pretty good in Akali. I'm not entirely sure if that's true, so we'll see.
cool. All right, on to bug fixes.
Whoa!
We fixed lots of bugs. I'll be honest with you, they might not all be listed here, but
Yeah.
we fixed lots of bugs. Typo fixes for a bunch of tooltips. I'm not going to read them all.
Chatting.
We fixed a lot of typos. Perfected Flesh Ripper's revive effect is no longer nullified by executes. Cool. Flesh Ripper
What?
now correctly procs on away boards. Great. Scion no longer leaves behind his chain roses when updated quickly. Is just a visual bug.
Yeah.
Jace will now only revive his Hextech Forge if combat is still happening. Cool.
Okay.
Clones summoned from Experiment Emblem Experiment bonus no longer deal player damage. Great. Spears will augment now works on form swappers. Great. Quality over quantity now returns the correct quality of item when consumables are used. Smeech will no longer freeze if he kills the enemy before reinforcing on double up. Support Mining and Support Mining Plus will no longer potentially prevent combat from ending. Another Anomaly will no longer create ghost items. Rumble no longer becomes monolocked for the rest of combat after gaining 200 mana
I've seen
at once.
this. I've seen this one.
Loris will no longer dash to unintended locations before his shield bash.
That's happened to me.
Akali will no longer freeze if she kills the final unit before an enemy double-up partner reinforces.
Okay.
Removing Trickster's Glass on a unit standing in a cloning facility hex will no longer create clones.
Whoa.
Melee Jace will no longer permanently delete units who are unmovable. If you ever lost your Vander, this is why. Melee Jace no longer deals unintended damage to CC immune targets in rare situations.
Okay.
Form swappers received from Pandora's Bench now correctly transform. Scuttle Familiar no longer gains the incorrect amount of health from Chem Barons equipped with lethal items. Champions with Scrap Emblem and Recurve Bow who don't have a completed item that builds from Recurve Bow in their recommended items now correctly generate a lucky item. Smeech with a Scrap Emblem now correctly generates lucky items while holding a Giant's Belt. Scion from Black Rose 7 will no longer fail to revive against Scion from Black Rose 5. This one, it says, is fixed, though I saw it happen to Frodan. I'm a little... It's either PBE didn't deploy or this one didn't actually get fixed, so be aware of that.
Wait. He said my name. He said my name.
Now correctly generated lucky item. Smeech with a Scrap Emblem now correctly generates lucky items while holding a Giant's Belt. Scion from Black Rose 7 will no longer fail to revive against Scion from Black Rose 5. This one, it says, is fixed, though I saw it happen to Frodan. I'm a little. It's either
yeah, it
PvE
did.
didn't deploy or this one didn't actually get fixed. So be aware of that. That one might not be fixed. Academic research properly removes invalid items such as mana items on monolith units and unique items. 2-trick no longer can constantly spawn. Yep, we talked about that. Pair of fours correctly only applies when exactly 2 4 costs are fielded. Quality over quantity shows the correct...
That's good. People were believe it or not, this was like tech that some players were hiding for Macau, but apparently Pair of Fours was working on more than 2 4 costs.
Inventory after an item is
hiding bugs, man.
Starting up a unit with the Academy emblem no longer gives incorrect damage, amp, and health for 1 round. Trait unlock Sisters grants Vi attack damage and Jinx attack speed instead of vice versa. Tomb Raider can no longer drop emblems. Garen's dance animation now correctly loops. That's a massive one. Will change the meta. Be aware of that one. Health as Wealth can no longer occasionally trigger twice.
Wait,
Cooking
what?
Pot properly is no longer offered on Wandering Trainers.
Yes.
That's a big one.
Man.
Dumbify and Golemify no longer cause issues with these gloves. Lux no longer fails to shield her target if they move before the missile hits them. And Experiment 7 now grants 300 health instead of 200.
Okay, so I mean they changed a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know about 75-80% of it. I did know a couple of small things about like the cooking pot stuff. Obviously I've seen the luxing happen, the pair of fours. But man, there's like this is crazy, man. So many, but I don't even know how to parse this.
There you go. It's a big patch. Like I said, lots of cool new stuff. 6 costs, balance stuff should be even better than before. Macau being played on this. This is great. If you just got here, I can go over this again real quick. No, I'm just kidding. So, last thing to note here is as we head to the end of 2024, the way this is going to work is this patch goes live December 11th. That's on Wednesday.
Okay.
The Macau Open starts Friday, the 13th.
Excellent.
That'll happen. That'll be cool. And then, if necessary, if we see anything, and we're planning on doing it, so it won't be an unplanned B patch.
Yeah.
But we'll basically like, hey, we want to go into the holiday. If we have to make any other adjustments, we still can.
Yes.
So there will likely be a B patch the week after. Again, this is planned. This is essentially like our patch before the break. This isn't some weird failing of balance. This is just we're keeping that option open.
Yeah, some people are not going to hear
and
that
then that'll
part.
be it for the year as we head into the new year. So, yeah. So there you go. Okay, that's a lot. I don't know how long I've been talking. Hopefully this video is not too long.
About an hour.
There you go. All right, that's going to do it for me. Until next time, if I don't see you on any of these videos, have a good holiday. Make sure you watch the Macau Open. It's going to be awesome. And yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mort. A round of applause in chat from Mort Dog and crew. Thank you for the great patch notes rundown. We did it for about an hour and a half. Oh my gosh, that was really long. I yapped a lot between stuff. I'm gonna slash marker and patch notes. Overall thoughts on the patch. They touched a lot of the right stuff. There are some things that I have to be very little bit caught. I mean, okay. I mean, the things that I think that are like obviously a lot of stuff they're touching is correct. Things that I'm not sure about. I'm not sure about like how strong Victor is. He feels really, really good, but obviously they want him to feel good. I'm not sure how weak Warwick feels, but Mordog already shot that. I don't think Canberra need to get buffed, but I mean, it is what it is. They want that to feel better. I think Automata does feel really good, but after playing for a couple days, I'm not sure if that's because it was just an easy strategy to pull off. Because right now, what's winning most lobbies is Black, Rose plus Victor, so that could be the case. And I also think that Heimerdinger feels like a little bit weaker. I could actually foresee a B patch buffing Heimerdinger. Or like reverting the nerf, because he does feel a lot weaker now that Malzahar got nerfed as well. Like the two of them don't do nearly as much. And then outside of that though, everything seems I guess like Comeback Story is an anomaly that I think a lot of people are picking anyways and looks really good. And I think that's pretty much it. The Ultimate Hero nerf, I think that was justified. But I don't know what the number is. Maybe that's an overreach. Maybe it's just 2 rounds and you get it, but we'll see. Why don't they change the individual 4-star 1-cost numbers instead of a fucking 3-round delay? Because then that would be bad for like the things that are like you're basically talking about only the anomalies versus just like playing like worth the wait. It's different. I don't think that's like a feasible game plan. or a feasible plan for them to actually tackle balance personally. Individually changing every single 4-star, what? Because you have to. That's it's just probably not going to work the way you hope it does.